Thanks, Pat. I appreciate it. Welcome everybody again to the, I think we figured it's the 8th NLTIA conference, not 8th annual, because I think one year there was 2. Ed has put together a great group of presenters and speakers. Hopefully we'll all get a lot of good information from it. Couple things to start out with. As you can see, this presentation is being video recorded. We're going to take each of these segments of the different non-traditional search types, make a little short video of each one, and put it on the NLTIA website, available for really anybody to see them. I'm not sure if it's going to be in a member section or not. So if you have colleagues that you think any of this would be valuable to, certain parts of it will be available to kind of maybe generate some interest in membership. If anybody, from the video standpoint, not going to really feature anybody in the crowd in case anybody's in the witness protection program. You don't need to worry about that. If you do want to have a mention for publicity for your business or anything, by all means, just give me a little piece of paper. Let me know your name, your company, and I can put it on the notes for the video so people know you were here. Okay. The content of what is going to be discussed is in a handout that I passed a lot around. Does everybody have one of these, or does anybody not have one of these? Okay, we need a few. Perfect. Yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. There's a couple more here if you need them. Throw them.
There's extras laying around.
Yeah.
Oh, there are? Okay.
Yeah, there may be a couple to pass around, but just, I didn't know exactly where to put them all. While he's doing that, let me tell you a little bit about myself, so you have a reason to think you might want to listen to me, or maybe not. My company that does work in the title industry is called AFX Corporation. We do all kinds of title searches across the country. Our main website is called titlesearch.com, convenient enough. We also have a website that's geared towards the abstractor industry called abstractors.com. Anybody who hasn't seen that, you may want to go to it. You can get a listing. You put your name and company name information, contact information. It's visited by a lot of potential clients, and it links to NLTIA as well. I also write quite a bit of content about the title industry on a blog called Title Search Blog. So you may see information that you like there and may want to put comments. The reason for this presentation is because, as we all know, the title abstracting industry has changed a lot in the last 2 to 3 years, to say the least. What is happening right now, what is happening in the future for search types and volumes is completely different of what it was a decade ago. And a decade seems like a long time, but it's really not. 1995, 2000, the days of transaction volumes of doing full searches, 50, 60-year searches, was kind of the bread and butter of what the independent abstractor did for searching. In the early 2000s, we all saw a lot of that going away to short searches, current owner, if that, maybe 2 owners for some things, if that. A lot of that went to, shall we say, offshore sources or even onshore sources that maybe weren't as experienced or qualified as the long-term experienced abstractor. And many much more experienced than I, okay, and have a depth of knowledge more than I. And like I said, when we had our meeting this morning, the skill level and knowledge and ability of abstracting that the independent abstractor has, the professional abstractor has, is something that is not duplicated anywhere. That knowledge of how to go through records and how to pull the information and the intelligence from documents is what we have in this room, is something that you don't see in other places. Even a lot of abstractors, or so-called abstractors, that aren't as professional as the ones who participate in associations like NLTIA or take it as seriously, don't understand it's more than just looking at a mortgage and saying this is a mortgage. Unfortunately, the clients for title searches, whether they be insurance companies or whatnot, either for good reasons or bad reasons, have decided that maybe that depth of search skill isn't necessary for their needs. For that reason, we're all seeing the volume of those deeper searches go down, and current owner searches, the price point reduced even farther because the perceived value of that for a lot of clients is less. They don't maybe realize that even a current owner search done, let's say, not complete, is going to affect claims on a policy or security on ownership of a property. For that reason, where does a professional, experienced abstractor look for the revenue and business to maintain a viable profession? In my opinion, it's in areas outside of the normal real estate closing process. That process is being commoditized. We all could wish it wasn't, but it is, and I think that that's going to continue. In addition, the volume of that business, the transactions and the refinances, isn't going to increase anytime soon. I don't think anybody here thinks that all of a sudden we're going to have an explosion in real estate transactions or mortgages. However, I was talking with Jay in the hall a little while ago. There are dozens of segments of business where there is a desperate need for the depth of knowledge that experienced professional abstractors have. The skill and knowledge that you and I and all of us have of how to read documents and how to gain intelligence from them for different purposes. And that's what we're going to talk about in some of the areas. The advantages of non-traditional searches are that you're not competing against less qualified and lower priced searchers, let's call them that, or fetchers. You can build a new client base. That new client base is going to look for searchers that can do the kind of complicated research that you all can do that maybe others can't. When you engage that client, they may have other traditional searches for you as well, since you're already engaged with them as a vendor. The search fees for these types of searches are higher. If you're going to have more skill set, more knowledge, and the search is going to take longer, of course the price is going to be higher. The clients for these type of searches, another benefit that a lot of people don't realize, they're accustomed to pay in advance for these type of searches. Okay? One of the problems that traditional abstractors have run into is when you have billing type arrangements with clients, all it takes is 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20 clients that goes down and doesn't pay you to erase all the profits from all the other ones. And that can be devastating, and a lot of abstractors have been affected by that. Non-traditional clients are outside of the normal real estate process. They're used to paying in advance for services, which could be a cash flow advantage. The other huge benefit to non-traditional searches is that these types of clients don't have the connection to the abstractor industry that the traditional real estate industry does. So they're going to pass along your information by word of mouth. If you are a quality, valuable vendor to them, they have colleagues in their industry that can that are looking for help as well. A lot of times, these industries don't know where to turn for deep type searching, and once they're hooked up with you, they can pass that along to their colleagues. The biggest part of it is having some source of income, even if it starts out small, where it gives you the flexibility not to have to chase those clients that have low price expectations and possibly questionable payment ability. You don't have to chase every last little $20 current owner search because you have these other opportunities available. It gives you more flexibility and security as a business. Before we get into the actual topics, a couple of things to keep in mind. With these searches, it's okay to quote longer turnaround times. A lot of these clients don't have hard deadlines like a closing or a refinance paperwork has to get signed. You can quote longer ETAs. They're used to it. Find out what they're looking for. You'd be surprised you don't have to rush around and quote longer ETAs. If it gets back sooner, that's just going to make you look better with the client. A lot of these searches will be more complicated than you think up front. I shouldn't say more complicated, but involve more documents. So avoid including copy costs in your search fee. Always charge extra for copies. Whether you decide to mark it up or not is a different story, but don't include it in because you may run into one document that's a 100-page document, and if you didn't charge extra for copies, it could be a problem. If for some reason you have a client that isn't paying in advance or you don't know the exact amount, consider getting a deposit. Just keep in mind that just because we're used to most of our traditional clients being hesitant or reluctant to pay upfront, don't let that make you gun shy about these non-traditional search clients because they're used to paying in advance for their services that they buy every day. So it's not going to be as much of an issue. And if you run into resistance, you can deal with that individually. To start, entering into these different business areas, the first thing is identify who the customers are, where to find them. We'll get into that a little bit later. More importantly, understand the scope of each search. Just because something is called a cell tower search may be different than somebody else asking you for a cell tower search. An environmental lien search from one environmental engineering company might be different than what another company wants. Don't rely on the labels. Get actual criteria and specs for that search because everybody's going to be different. The worst thing in the world is to have a search, you did everything perfect, and it's a great search, you did a fantastic job, you send it to them and they say, no, we wanted something else. And that either becomes a customer relations problem or worse, a payment problem, which none of us need. The other thing is there may be some perceived issue with how hard these searches are. I can guarantee you that the knowledge and skill of anybody in this room is certainly exceeds what you need to know to be able to do these. There's certain parts of it that you may not be aware of, but it's not anything that's rocket science that nobody can figure out. They're harder, they're more complex, but it's like the same thing we're doing, just more of it. So don't be afraid that these are too hard to do. E&O is a question that comes up. Does your E&O insurance cover these types of searches? You need to check, with your carrier. However, I can tell you that if you want to get into one area, one thing you may want to do is say, hey, here's my E&O policy. This is what it covers. If it doesn't cover, let's say, commercial properties, you can ask your carrier, can I get an exception to do commercial up to a certain amount, maybe up to $500,000 or $800,000, depending on your market area per property. You don't want to do $10 million strip malls, but maybe you want to do a $300,000, little apartment building. You can get an exception for that. You can also ask them if they're hesitant, look, I'll only do this much in revenue this year. Maybe I'll only do, $10,000 in revenue of these searches this year. Can you get me an exception for that? And they may do it with no cost, maybe a small increase, rather than getting a whole new E&O policy and raising red flags and bells going off at your carrier that all of a sudden you're this, you're exceeding your abilities. Get an exception for a small amount. That might be a solution. The last thing is when you get into pricing, consider hourly pricing. Most of these searches, you may not be able to put a number on up front. Think about what it might cost, say X amount per hour. Maybe you put a minimum, maybe you put a maximum. Maybe the better idea is to take a look at the property ahead of time, just a rough idea. Maybe you do some online searching of the assessor's records. Maybe you pull some of the electronic data available, see what the property is all about to come up with a rough idea so you can put a range on it, what it might be. You don't have to quote it right off the bat. These people don't need a number instantly, and you can put that together afterwards. The last thing is, this presentation, we have an hour and 45 minutes to cover a lot of stuff. Each subject might go 7 to 8 minutes. It's not designed to make you a commercial searcher, a landman overnight. It's designed to kind of whet your appetite a little bit about what these might be like, what might be entailed with it to learn more. The last thing I want to do is kind of get into problems with the ethics committee about trying to teach somebody something too short, The days of the bread and butter 50-year full search every day, getting a bunch of them from your vendor managers, it's changed. The last 10 or 15 years was one thing. The next 5 years, I think, is much more important than the last 10 or 15. The one valuable thing from the last 2 decades is the knowledge and experience that we all have of knowing titles inside and out, knowing public records inside and out. That's not going to change. No one can take that away from us, ever. We have that. And no one else has that, because no one spent 2 or 3 decades with our heads in deed books. No one has. And you can't gain that knowledge overnight. No one can replace that. So these other industries that will need more deep searching, what I call analysis, I look at it like, instead of being the title searcher anymore, be an analyst, analyze stuff. There's plenty of, and I think Pat might have coined the phrase, fetchers. You know, plenty of people can pull a document. Anybody can pull a document. You look up a name index, here's document 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, I got it. What does it mean? I don't know. How's it compared to this one? I don't know. What does this language mean with this? I don't know. We know. Many other industries will need that analysis. That market will be increasing, the analysis, deeper search. You're not going to find it from vendor managers. You're not going to find it from mortgage brokers. That stuff will always be there. That's not going to go to zero. But the increasing parts of the market will be more analysis that the type of searchers that may not have the experience yet that we all have can't do. And the people who don't have experience yet that just want to get into the business now, great for them. I don't discourage anybody. I've seen a lot of discouragement of people who, no, this is not a good time to get into the title search industry or be an abstractor. I disagree. I think any time is great for anybody to get in any industry that they believe in, that they want to be in. So I wouldn't discourage anybody, even though it's rough. There's a need for those people, and in 5 or 10 years, they'll have the same knowledge that we have. But in the meantime, the depth that we have of skill and expertise, there's a need for it. Right now, I believe that a lot of abstractors are looking inside the real estate industry, traditional searches. The future is in other areas, at least the near future. Maybe in 5 or 10 years it comes back where real estate is a different animal than it is today. But right now there is a lot of that. And I can tell you that because I see the demand there. This isn't pie in the sky stuff. I'm aware of millions of dollars, literally millions of dollars of business being transacted in these areas right now. And Pat and I talked on the phone on some of our NULTIA board meetings where we see people going out of the business. Source of Title had a post, another one drops out or something like that. We all know people that have left the industry. I don't want any of us to be the next ones to leave the industry. It doesn't have to happen. There's business out there. If you're looking to wait for mortgage brokers or vendor managers to go back to, well, we don't want current owner searches anymore. We want to go back to 50-year search. Anybody think that's going to happen? It's not. I want it to. I think it should, but it's probably not. So that's where the business is going to come from. Offshoring is not going to change. Jay and I were talking about how, it wasn't Jay actually, it was that gentleman right there. What's your name? Fran. Fran was telling me about an article he saw about Fidelity going from 800 to 1,800 employees in India. Not only was the number important, but to me the key to that story was not how many were there, but what they were going to be doing. They weren't just going to be pulling documents. They were going to be doing underwriting in India. That's a big deal. That's a bigger deal than how many people there are. So the question is, what do you want to do in the future? The future is going to be what it is. The next 5 years to me is more important than the last 15. Abstractors are very skilled at their trade. That talent is going to waste. The increased focus that I see is on business development. As much as we are experts at searching, sometimes developing the business gets put on the back burner because we're just so focused on being great searchers. Developing that business to me is huge because you don't have a search to do until you have sold one. And developing that business is a huge thing, and all it takes is a little bit to get this much business. Millions of dollars. How do you do it? Marketing is a thing. Nobody can be expert at everything. I can tell you print probably is not the best way to go. Internet, Google advertising, maybe, but there's a ton of people out there. It gets expensive. The best way, in my opinion, is use of networking, building rapport with people in your industry and outside in other industries, being part of forums. Every industry has a source of title type board for it. Just read it for a couple months. See what these people are talking about. Learn the lingo so when you talk to them, you can say, like the cell tower, co-location, survey area, install, whatever it is. Think for the client. Be an expert. If you have colleagues in other parts of the country, you can exchange leads. If you have somebody in your area that's a big company that they might be able to help in California, you can have like a loosely held co-op to exchange information. That's something that might work. There will be a lot more people leaving the industry, unfortunately. Again, we shouldn't be one of them if we're an expert at what we do because we have value. And I hate to see that value go away because if it does, in 5 years when people do need a complicated search, there won't be anybody to do it. So based on that, the 25 or 30 people that are here have taken the time to try to at least learn some about it. Again, nobody can make you an expert at these things overnight. It's a matter of time. I just wanted to kind of whet your appetite a little bit, get your foot in the door about what these searches are all about, how to search them, where the customers are. The abstractor, to me, has an important role in ensuring the secure ownership of property in this country. It's a high-profile issue right now with all the stuff that's going on with the mortgage industry. Abstractors are more crucial to secure ownership of real estate right now than they ever were. And you don't want to turn it to be where the government takes over and makes some kind of government land registry like they have in Canada or Australia. We want to keep it how it is now. So with that, I appreciate everybody taking the time. I know it was a long session. I wish you continued success with all you're doing and excellent luck with your ventures. Thanks a lot. Thanks.